Could you imagine if God gave you the opportunity to experience a world where all evil, all injustice had been completely wiped out, a fresh start, nothing to be afraid of, no one else other than just your family. It's just you, and you're being given this new world and this new opportunity. Can you imagine how Moses' mind must have just wondered, what is this going to be like? Because he grew up in a time when it said the intentions of every man's heart was only evil all the time. That is way worse than anything that we are dealing with right now. And so can you imagine growing up in that kind of an environment, and then God says, I choose you. I'm going to save you, and I'm going to save your family, and I'm going to save 2 of every single animal of the unclean animals, and even more of the clean animals. I'm going to put them all on this ark. And then I'm going to start over again from fresh. Can you imagine having an opportunity like that? And yet, it doesn't stay pretty for very long, does it? I can only imagine the hope that was in Noah's heart as he stepped off of that ark when God finally said, come forth. And yet, do you know what the first sin was? It's an interesting thing. You have to look really, really carefully to notice it. But it actually happened. And Noah did such an incredible job of following God's instruction in doing what God told him to do. He even stayed in the ark until God told him it was time to come out. But then we see something fascinating here. In Genesis chapter 8:15, God spoke to Noah and said, come out of the ark, you, your wife, your sons, and your sons' wives with you. Then bring out with you all the living creatures that are with you. Okay? God has spoken. He said it's time to come out, and God has given a specific order for coming out. But notice something here. In verse 18 of chapter 8, Noah went out with his sons, his wife, his son's wife, every living creature. So, did you catch anything there? Did Noah do it exactly the way that God said to do it? Got the wives and the sons backwards, didn't he? He elevated the son to a position of higher prominence, letting them come out before his wife and his son's wife. That's not what God told him to do. Now, you've got to understand, if Scripture was to write down every single detail of every single story, oh my goodness, I can't even imagine how incredible the Bible would be. I'd be like, hello. No, it'd be way bigger than that. And so there's specific things in here that start giving us a heads up, little things that when you pick up on them, you realize all's not well. Everything's not perfect. Because see, the problem is evil isn't something out there that needs to be washed out and wiped out and taken out. In Genesis chapter 6 through 9, what we see, and especially by the end of chapter 9, when we stay on that ark, we bring it with us, right? And that had to be an unbelievably sobering thing to realize you and your family are the only people on this earth, fresh, new start that you're being given. All the other wickedness, all the other horrible acts and violence and injustice, all that's been washed away. And then you realize, I'm falling short. I'm messing up. I'm not doing what God's telling me to do. And by definition, that's evil. And then you realize the sin that's in the world has all come from you. Can you imagine how unbelievably overwhelming it would be to realize that the first time you yell harshly to your wife, or the first time you're impatient with your son, or the first time you see your son doing something sinful and you realize the wickedness is here and it's growing and it's increasing. Just wiping it from out there isn't enough. It's coming through us. Is there any wonder that Noah got drunk? You see, it can be such a hard thing when we recognize evil isn't just something out there, but this sin nature is still alive and kicking inside of me. God has broken the power of sin in my life, but my flesh, I am still carrying this body of death around with me, even as God is at work bringing life and transforming me. He is my hope. That's why. Do you understand? People are always like, how in the world could a good God let there be evil in the world? To get rid of evil in the world, he would have had to completely eliminate every single person. But instead, because of his incredible love for us, he chose not to do that. Instead, he came up with another plan. A plan that would involve bringing himself to earth in the form of a human being, living a perfect life here, and then dying in our place. We're going to look at that more next week in that picture of God's love. But in this picture, one thing I was hoping we would just really maybe explore a little bit more here is that idea of what do we do when we're overwhelmed with our sin and we realize the evil's not out there, it's in us. And you realize that this isn't even something that's just a Christian thing that Christians realize. I will never forget reading Ernest Hemingway's book, Islands in the Stream, with my son when he was 15 years old. And he was reading it for class, and I'm curious. I want to read what he's reading. Nobody's taking it, and I was so glad because there is this scene in the book where the main character is having a meal with a prostitute. And in their conversation, he is going on telling her about the most amazing, pleasurable evening he's ever had with 3 Chinese women. All right? And he just talks about how the sex was unbelievable. It was beyond anything he could have ever imagined. And the prostitute leans in and asks him, but did you feel clean afterward? He totally ignores her question, and he keeps going on and on about just how amazing this sex was. And she leans in again and says, but did you feel clean afterward? Finally, he doesn't ignore her question, and he admits, after they left, he took a shower, and he scrubbed, and he scrubbed, and he scrubbed for an hour and a half, and nothing he did could make him feel clean. Do you realize, even among people who don't know Jesus, there is this innate sense that sin is sin. And when we blow it, we're unclean, and there's nothing that we can do about it. So do you see, what happens is that's an awful feeling when we feel that inside, when we realize, oh my goodness, there's something wrong with me. And it's not even just what I do, but I am impure. I am bringing impurity and wickedness into this world with what I'm doing. Is there any wonder that there are such high levels of alcoholism, and they keep increasing as people get older, or drug abuse, even among the elderly? Do you see, there's something that's really, really fascinating. In Titus 3, when Paul is instructing the older women to invest in the younger women, do you know what the first thing is he says to Timothy? He says, treat older women, teach them not to be addicted to too much wine. Now, do you get this? Paul is talking about believers here. He is talking about believers having a drinking habit. This isn't just something the lost struggle with. No, this idea of numbing is something that all of us as human beings struggle with, because that sense of failure, that sense of our sin, that sense of our own unworthiness in ourselves can be so incredibly overwhelming if we aren't preaching the gospel to ourselves daily. But do you see, that is why we don't just need Jesus to save us once. We need him every single day to save us from our sin, to save us from despair, to save us from condemning ourselves and the lies of the enemy, to save us from the ways we try to escape by numbing. This is a fascinating thing. God is the God of all comfort. We are told he is close to the brokenhearted. When you are brokenhearted over your sin, God is close to you. But if you're so busy beating yourself up and looking inward and down and thinking, I'm such a loser, you may not even recognize it and be able to take advantage of him reminding you of what he's already done for you, that he is the answer. And it's so easy for us to be so overwhelmed. Like Noah, we start turning to other things, just trying to numb the pain, just trying to deal with it. So I'm going to share with you something here. This is an idea I got from a course that Brene Brown put together. And she deals with this whole idea of the difference between comfort and numbing in her book, The Gifts of Imperfection. And it is just brilliant the way that she has put this together. And it can be very, very helpful for you. So this is like extra art journaling here. I'm just going to give you some tips here. What leads me to numb? Because I know for me, when I was struggling with masturbation, it was a way of numbing the pain. It was a way of trying to make myself feel good, to deal with the pain of feeling ugly, of feeling rejected, of feeling not enough, feeling a disappointment. And so that was one of the numbing thing that I went to. And it's good to sit there and understand, what are these triggers? What are these things that can lead you to want to numb? All right? For me, constant criticism, anxiety, negative feedback, conflict. I love people. I don't like conflict. Rejection. Like when I put myself out there initiating a friendship and I'm ignored or brushed off, that hurts. When I feel overlooked and not valued, or when people are disappointed with me, when no matter what I do is not enough, or accusative anger from others, how that can shut me down. Friendly fire in the ministry, not very friendly at all. These are the things, when they happen, I have a choice. Am I going to run to God, the God of all comfort, and cry out to him for help, cry out to him for healing, ask him to help me see things from his perspective and to be able to walk with me through this? Or when things to come more naturally, are these kinds of things. And that's to create another page. And I do this with red because, you know what? When you get wounded, I'm thinking of like a skin knee, or when you get hurt, there's blood and you bleed. It's like you're hemorrhaging from the inside. What do I use to numb? For me, masturbation would be something that's on this page. And you know what? Like I've always said, once you're an addict to something, there's a well-worn path going right back there. And so I have to be very aware. It's still there. And I have to cry out to God for help not to go that way. But other things, even when I've closed that door, it's so easy to substitute other unhealthy things that may look better, but still, I'm using them to numb the pain on the inside. I tend to shut down, get silent, become non-relational, and kind of pull inside myself. That's why I drew a little turtle there. Or I look away. Now, see, you have to understand, I am hearing impaired. If I look away, I can't read your lips. So if my husband says something and it hurts me, I tend to look away. And I'll be like, wait, you can't hear me. I'm like, I don't want to. I've been doing this intentionally. To mindlessly scroll through Facebook. Or another thing, read a story just to get lost in it, right? Or just to read random things on the internet. Just waste time. Just reading things that really aren't doing me or anybody any good. Just reading things. Not necessarily. It doesn't even have to be something that, oh no, that's literary porn or it's sin or something. No, not that at all. Just randomly wasting time. It's just a way of numbing. All right? Now, these are things that I will tend to turn to. It's interesting to know the things that numb, as well as the things that bring comfort, can sometimes be the same thing. And I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. So it's not so much the things that I'm doing. You might be like, those aren't any problem for me. And you may have things that I don't even have on here. It can be very unique for each person because it's not what you're doing. It's why you're doing it. I created another page here, kind of highlight the difference between numbing and comfort. And when I'm numbing, the goal is to not hurt, or I just want to stop the hurt. I just want to feel good. Numbing tends to make me distant, disengaged. I go flat. I shut down. And one of the things, numbing never solves the problem. It may feel good at the time, better than feeling the pain, but never solves the problem. And the crazy thing is, afterwards, I'm in a worse place. Mostly because I feel like I've wasted time and that just drives me crazy. But also I tend to shut people out. So it can have negative impacts on my relationships with people also. So my relationships are in a worse place than that. The interesting thing is numbing tends to come a lot easier to me than doing things that comfort. This is like my natural default. I think that's part of the sin nature right in there. And I tend to put walls up. I tend to just become apathetic, stop caring, and my feelings tend to go dead inside. And if I'm not careful, it can be very dangerous. It can be dangerous of putting walls up, developing a locked heart, and it can actually damage my heart the more I keep running to things that numb me. Comfort, on the other hand, this idea of comfort, it's a gift from God. And when I'm comforted, the things I do that really comfort me are life-giving, restorative. They tend to be very healing, especially to heal the heart inside, and it helps. I'm actually in a better place after I've taken the extra step to do something comforting rather than numbing. But it doesn't tend to come naturally. As far as my heart, these comfort things, the things that bring me comfort, tend to help my heart stay open and soft. And like I said, it can be the same activity, but it's what am I doing it for? And we'll talk about that in a minute. Comfort brings joy. Now, I'd love to sit there, and I created a fourth page here. Yes, this was a banner time because it really connected with me. This idea, what brings me comfort? And I thought, I'm going to have fun and put an acronym for it. It's for the C, being creative. Oh my goodness, when I go down and just playing with paint, things like that, I've already shared how much that can help me process my emotions. But it's amazing how comforting that can be, utilizing color and texture and just doing that. Oh, being active outdoors, just going outside, seeing the flowers. Sometimes even being outside in a rainstorm. I've got this great hat with a good brim, so it doesn't bump my nose all the time. But I'll be out there hiking in a rainstorm. It is amazing how much comfort that can bring to me. Meditating on God's Word. Oh, it is amazing because you know what happens when God speaks to me as I'm meditating on His Word? It is amazing. I don't feel alone. And He, the God of all comfort, meets me in such a powerful way. Having time with friends. Now, see what's interesting. When I'm sitting here and I'm numbing, I retreat into my shell and I feel worse after. But having time with friends who love and accept you, who can understand but love you enough, they're not going to just let you stay there looking inward, can make such a powerful difference in your life. Oh, observing beauty, whether it's pictures, whether it's going somewhere that's beautiful, or garden, going to a garden, or just enjoying flowers. Even sometimes going to the grocery store and walking up and down the produce aisles. Oh, I love that of Whole Foods. Those produce aisles are amazing. And just soaking in the colors of all the different fruits and vegetables God's made. Reading. Now, this is a big difference. Am I reading? Because sometimes reading, when I'm in the middle of the story and I'm feeling really down, reading can help nourish my soul so much because I see the story from beginning to end and it helps me put things in perspective. So if I'm asking God, would you bless me with something good that will nourish my soul? Oh, it's amazing how a book can do that. But if I'm just mindlessly reading, and I'm a reader, I can mindlessly read all day, things that have no purpose or anything, and it just numbs me, but it uses the time. I don't feel pain. There's a difference. T, getting time alone with Jesus, especially my dates with Jesus. Now, well, actually, this happened a couple weeks ago. Some things happened, and I was just really, really struggling, and the response inside was just total ugliness. And I just told my husband, I need to get away. And I just got in the car, and I went off, and I just spent 6 hours alone with Jesus. Time in His Word. He led me to a book that I could read. And I was like, God, I'm not in a good place. Just guide me. And He did. And it was the most amazing date with Him. And afterwards, not only had my feelings calmed down, but He had brought peace about the very same circumstances. They hadn't changed, but He brought peace. So I was able to move forward and embrace what before I wasn't able to, and to give me His perspective and His assurance He was going to be with me each step of the way. So I just want to challenge you, because what Noah did, that idea of trying to numb, right? It's so easy, and especially right now in our society today, there's so many things. Is it shopping? Is it drinking? Is it watching TV mindlessly, just putting something on just to numb? If you're doing it to numb, it's good to recognize what got you there. What was the trigger that led you to that? And then to really be able to understand, okay, what are your ways of trying to numb and to shut down? That can help you recognize this has been so powerful. Once I got these things down here, it was like, oh, I'm doing that. Do you see what I'm saying? And it helped me to kind of get that heads up, especially then when I went through and began to understand, okay, numbing isn't going to get me where I want to go. It may be the easier path, but results aren't pretty. Comfort is what I need. And then to begin to understand the things that God has provided, both direct by Himself and how He works through other things to help me truly find comfort, can make such an incredible difference in our lives. So I just want to challenge you. If you have time, try to create those pages and process through, what does it look like for you? Because the reality is, we live in a broken, fallen world, and there's a lot of pain that's in here. But you know what? A lot of that brokenness, a lot of that fallenness comes through us too. The gospel, preaching the gospel to ourselves, which we're going to talk about next time, can really help us find freedom from that. But in the midst of it, when we're feeling the pain, being intentional and beginning to understand, am I numbing? Or am I seeking out the comfort that God delights to give? Can make such a difference.